The lobby of the Maribel Shore Resort smelled like money. Salt air piped through hidden vents. Citrus polish on marble floors. Fresh lilies in a vase the size of a child. A pianist in a white jacket played something delicate and expensive, the kind of music that made people walk softer, as if noise itself cost extra. And in the middle of it all, a woman stood with a small leather bag in her hand, looking like she had nowhere to be and all the time in the world. Her hair was silver, braided close to her scalp and pinned in a crown. Her skin was deep and luminous, the color of roasted coffee. She wore a simple navy coat with a scarf knotted neatly at the throat, and gloves that had seen years, good years and hard ones. She was not loud. She did not beg. She did not flinch. The man in front of her, tall, blonde, blazer too bright, smile too sharp, tilted his head with practiced pity. "I'm going to say this one more time," he said, turning his voice in a theater. "You cannot loiter in this lobby." The woman blinked slowly. "I'm not loitering. You're making guests uncomfortable." A couple near the fireplace glanced up, then away, like a flicker of shame had passed through them. A woman in an expensive hat whispered into her phone. A kid with a skateboard paused at the entrance, eyes wide, sensing drama the way dogs sense thunderstorms. Behind a front desk, the receptionist's cheeks were flushed. Her hands hovered over the keyboard like she was afraid to touch anything. A security guard approached from the side, radio crackling on his shoulder. He was broad, uniform tight around his arms, eyes already narrowing like he'd been told who the villain was. "Ma'am," the guard said, "they're asking you to leave." The woman looked at him, not at the manager. "Who is they?" she asked softly. The manager's smile thinned. "The resort, ma'am. This is private property. We have standards." Standards. It landed in the air like a slap. A murmur moved through the lobby, tiny ripples of discomfort. Some people watched with curiosity. Some watched with approval. Some watched like they wanted to help, but didn't want their names attached. Near the concierge desk, a young man in a hoodie raised his phone a little higher. His screen reflected the scene in miniature. Silver-braided woman, smug manager, looming guard. "You're live?" his friend whispered. "Yeah," he whispered back. "Look at this. This is crazy." The number in the corner of his screen climbed. A soft ding. A heart icon fluttered. The manager didn't notice. Or maybe he did and didn't care, convinced the camera would only validate his authority. "Ma'am," he said louder, letting the lobby hear him, "if you don't leave, I will have you escorted out." The woman's gaze drifted past him to the ocean visible through the glass wall, blue, restless, eternal. "I'm here for the board meeting," she said. The manager gave a quick laugh, the kind that carried a blade. "The board meeting," he repeated, like she claimed she was here to pilot the private jet parked on the roof. "The board meets in the executive suite. Not in the lobby. Not here." The guard shifted closer. A second guard appeared at the edge of the crowd, responding to the tension like blood to a wound. The receptionist whispered, "Mr. Weller." "Not now." The manager snapped without looking back. The woman's fingers tightened on her bag. Still, her posture stayed upright. Her voice stayed even. "I have a right to be here," she said. The manager leaned in, dropping his voice, but not enough. "Listen," he murmured, "I don't know what your angle is, but this isn't a shelter. This isn't a community center. This is a luxury resort. People pay a lot to feel safe." Safe. Like she was a storm. Like she was a threat. The hoodie kid's live-stream chat began to scroll fast. "This is racist as hell. She looks like someone's grandma. Call the police?" "For what?" "Bro, the manager is trash." The woman did not look at the phone. She did not look at the crowd. She looked at the manager with a calm so deep it was almost unsettling. "You're going to regret the way you're speaking to me," she said quietly. The manager straightened, affronted, and lifted his chin like he was about to deliver a verdict. "Oh, am I?" he said. "Because from where I'm standing, you're the one who's about to be arrested." The guard reached for his arm, ready to take her. The pianist stopped playing. The lobby held its breath. And the woman, still calm, still composed, slipped her hand into her bag. Not for a weapon, not for panic, for something thin and simple that made the air around her feel suddenly electric. A black folder, embossed with a gold seal. She looked at it like a match. Then she looked up. "Go ahead," she said. "Call them." The manager's smile froze, because at the very top of the folder, visible to anyone close enough to see, was a name that did not belong to a trespasser. A name that belonged to the resort, and to the world that was about to turn upside down. At 5:12 a.m., the sun hadn't risen yet, but the sea was already awake. It breathed in long, patient exhales against the shore, and the sound rolled through the window of a modest house 10 miles inland, where an old alarm clock clicked and buzzed on a kitchen counter. The woman reached out and silenced it with one gentle press. She did not need the alarm. She had been waking before dawn her whole life. In the dim kitchen light, she poured water into a kettle and set it on the stove. She moved with quiet efficiency, as if the morning was a ritual and she was its priestess. On the wall beside the refrigerator, a framed photograph caught the faint glow. A younger version of her, hair black then, smile wide, standing in front of a half-built resort with a hard hat on her head. Around her were workers, mostly men, laughing and clapping like they'd just witnessed a miracle. Below the photo, another frame, a newspaper clipping, edges yellowed. Local entrepreneur breaks ground on first black-owned coastal resort. The byline was smudged, but her name was not. Marianne Coles, 72 years old. Founder, visionary, owner, though the world often tried to forget that part. She sipped tea at the kitchen table, a small notebook open in front of her. The pages were filled with careful handwriting, appointments, expenses, reminders, names. Not because she had to, because she believed a mind stayed sharp when it stayed engaged. At 6:03 a.m., her phone buzzed. A text from her lawyer. "Meeting today at 10. Don't let them rush you. I'll be there." She stared at the message, then looked out the window at the blue-gray morning. They had been trying to rush her for years. First with compliments that felt like handcuffs. "Let's help you scale, Ms. Coles." Then with concerns that sounded like accusations. "Your brand is old-fashioned." Then with offers that were really threats. "We can make this easy for you." The resort had grown into a legend. Couples got engaged there. Families returned every summer. Celebrities hid behind sunglasses and enjoyed anonymity on private balconies. And along the way, investors arrived like seagulls when someone opened a bag of fries. She took funding. She took partnerships. She took board members. Not because she was naive, because she understood something the world rarely credited her for. Building something lasting required allies, even imperfect ones. But she had kept control. She had kept her shares. She had kept a clause, quiet, buried, ironclad, that said no one could force her out of the company she birthed. She had learned early, back when she was 19 and the first bank manager she ever met told her, with a smile, that loans were for people with stable backgrounds. Back when her father's friend offered to handle the paperwork for her first property, and she discovered later he'd tried to put his name on the deed. Back when a contractor laughed in her face and said, "Lady, you don't build resorts. You clean them." She had smiled then too, and she had built it anyway. At 7:45 a.m., she dressed with intention. Not flashy, not performative. A navy coat, a scarf, a pair of pearl earrings her mother had given her when she graduated high school. Pearls earned through years of washing white folks' laundry and saving coins in a jar above the sink. She pinned them in place and looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyes were steady, tired sometimes, but steady. At 8:30, she drove toward the coast in a sedan that was paid off and practical. The world liked to imagine wealthy people looked wealthy at all times. She had long outgrown the need to announce herself through chrome and noise. The radio played softly, a gospel song her mother used to hum, the kind that carried pain and hope in the same breath. When a resort appeared on the horizon, its white walls glowing against the sea, something tightened in her chest. Pride, yes, and grief. Because building something beautiful as a black woman in this country meant watching people try to claim it once it became worth something. She parked in the staff lot on purpose. She liked walking through the back entrance sometimes. She liked seeing the kitchen staff laughing, the maintenance crew fixing what needed fixing, the housekeepers moving like a disciplined orchestra. It reminded her that luxury didn't come from chandeliers. It came from hands. A young housekeeper recognized her and froze, eyes widening. "Ms. Coles," she whispered. Marian smiled. "Good morning." The girl's face lit up like she'd just been told she mattered. "My grandma talks about you," she blurted. "She said you used to work the front desk yourself." "I did," Marian said, "and I folded towels when we couldn't afford extra staff." The girl laughed in disbelief. "No way." Marian leaned closer, voice warm. "Way." Then she straightened and walked toward the main lobby entrance. Not to show off, not to test anyone, just to attend a board meeting in the place she had dreamed into existence. She had no idea that within an hour, the resort would treat her like a stranger, or that the world was about to learn what happens when you mistake quiet dignity for weakness. "Ma'am," the guard said again, louder now, "please come with me." The lobby felt smaller, like the air had thickened, like every chandelier crystal was holding its breath. The manager, Weller, lifted his hand and made a small gesture toward the doors. As respectfully as possible, he said, "You need to leave. Now." Marianne held the folder at her side. Her thumb rested on the edge, steady. "I'm not leaving," she said. Weller's face hardened. "You're trespassing." "I'm not." "You're disrupting guest experience." "I'm standing." "You're refusing a direct order from management." Marianne's eyes didn't move. "You're not management," she replied. That hit him like a slap. A couple near the elevators leaned in closer to hear. A man in a polo whispered, Is she serious?" The Hoodie Kid's live stream exploded. She said, "You're not management, Ong. Get him, Grandma. Why is security here?" Another phone rose. Then another. A ripple of screens. A woman with bright nails and a designer purse began narrating out loud, like she was making her own content. "This is insane," she said, camera aimed at Marianne. "They're literally trying to throw this elderly lady out. She says she's here for a board meeting. He says she's trespassing. We're at Maribel Shore. This is wild." The manager finally noticed the cameras. His eyes flicked to the Hoodie Kid's phone, to the growing crowd. He forced a smile, meant to look composed, but looked desperate. "Folks, please," he said, palms out. "This is being handled. Go about your day." No one moved, because something about public humiliation turns people into spectators and jurors at the same time. Marianne remained still. Weller leaned toward the guard and murmured, "If she resists, call local police." Marianne heard him. So did the phones. The chat on the Hoodie Kid stream turned to fire. "Call police for what? Existing? This is a lawsuit. Somebody tag the news." A teenager near the entrance whispered, "Should we do something?" Her mother pulled her back. "No, baby. Stay out of it." Marianne turned her head slightly, hearing that, and her expression did not change, but something in her eyes softened, like she understood exactly how fear moves through families. The guard took a step closer. "Ma'am," he said, "I don't want to do this." Marianne looked at him fully now. "I know," she said. That simple sentence made his jaw clench, because she spoke like she could see him. Not the uniform, not the authority, the man under it. Weller snapped, "Don't get emotional. Do your job." The guard's eyes flashed. He was being watched too now. Every decision recorded. Every movement preserved. He reached for Marianne's elbow, hesitated, then touched her lightly. Marianne did not pull away. She lifted the folder, opened it, and slid out a single sheet of paper. White paper, black text, gold seal. She held it up at chest level, angled so the phones could catch it. "Before you do anything," she said, voice calm but carrying, "read this." Weller scoffed. That could be anything. Marianne didn't argue. She simply looked at the receptionist behind the desk. The young woman's name tag read Lana. Lana's eyes were wide, her mouth slightly open, like she was watching someone step into traffic. Marianne said softly, "Lana, sweetheart, would you come here?" Weller barked, "Do not involve staff." But Lana did, because something in Marianne's voice sounded like a grandmother calling you home before dark. Lana stepped around the desk, hands trembling, and approached. Marianne handed her the paper. Lana's eyes moved over the text. Once, twice. Her face drained of color. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Weller's smile faltered. What is that? Lana's eyes lifted slowly to Weller, then to Marianne, then to the guards, then to the phones. Her voice came out as a whisper that somehow filled the room. It's her. Weller frowned. What do you mean it's her? Lana swallowed hard, then said louder, voice cracking. It says Marianne Coles. Founder. Majority shareholder. A beat of silence hit the lobby like a wave. Weller blinked, then laughed, a brittle sound. That's impossible, he said. That woman. Marianne's gaze held his. Finish your sentence, she said. Weller's mouth opened, then closed, because the sentence that wanted to come out was ugly, and every phone was pointed at him. The guard slowly removed his hand from Marianne's elbow, like it had burned him. Weller reached for the paper. Give me that. Lana flinched, but held it. Marianne said, Don't snatch. Ask. Weller's eyes went sharp. I don't have to ask. This is my lobby. Marianne smiled slightly. No, she said. It's mine. The lobby gasped, not all at once, but in scattered little shocks. Someone whispered, Oh my God. A ding sounded from a phone. Then another. Notifications. Shares. The live stream count jumped. 2,100. 4,800. 8,900. Weller's face tightened. He turned to the guards. Remove her, he hissed. Now. The guard nearest Marianne didn't move. Sir, he said carefully, if she's... Weller snapped. She's lying. Marianne's voice stayed even. I'm not lying, she said. And then, as if on cue, the elevator doors at the far end of the lobby slid open. A group stepped out, men and women in tailored suits, carrying folders and tablets. They moved with the focused urgency of people who believed the world waited for their decisions. At the center of them was a man in his 60s, salt and pepper hair, glasses, walking with purpose. He saw Marianne and stopped dead. His face changed instantly. Respect, recognition, alarm. Ms. Coles, he said, voice loud enough for everyone to hear. What on earth? Weller spun toward him. Sir, thank God. This woman is causing a disturbance. We're handling it. The suited man stared at Weller like he'd just spoken in another language. This woman, he repeated slowly, is Marianne Coles, the founder. Weller's mouth went dry. The suited man stepped closer, voice turning cold. She's the reason you have a job. A hush fell, so deep, even the sea seemed to pause beyond the glass wall. And in that silence, you could almost hear every person in the lobby realizing the story they thought they were watching had just changed genres. The suited man turned to Marianne, his posture shifting into something that looked almost like apology. I'm so sorry, he said. I was told you were meeting us upstairs. I didn't know you'd be delayed. Marianne didn't nod, didn't wave it off. She simply said I was stopped. The suited man's jaw clenched. He turned back to Weller. What is your name? He asked. Weller swallowed. James Weller, general manager. And you just threatened to have Ms. Coles arrested. The man said, each word careful, surgical. Weller lifted his hands. I didn't know. She didn't identify herself. Marianne's voice cut through, quiet but sharp. I said I was here for the board meeting. Weller's cheeks flushed. People say things. The suited man stared at him. People, he repeated. Or certain people. The phones caught everything. The chat screamed. He said certain people. Oh, it's over for him. Behind the suited man, another board member stepped forward. A woman with sleek hair and eyes like steel. I'm recording, she said flatly, holding up her own phone. So no one can rewrite this later. Weller's eyes darted from phone to phone. His confidence, once inflated, began to deflate in visible increments. Marianne lifted her folder and opened it. She pulled out a document and held it toward the board. I'm invoking Clause 14b, she said. The board members stiffened. The suited man's eyes widened. Ms. Coles. I'm invoking it, Marianne repeated. Effective immediately. Weller frowned, confused. What is she talking about? The woman board member with steel eyes looked at him with a kind of pity that felt worse than anger. It's the Founder's Protection Clause, she said. The one that gives her emergency authority when the company is exposed to reputational harm by executive misconduct. Weller's face turned pale. That's not, he started. Marianne looked at him. You tried to throw me out of my own resort, she said softly, in front of my guests, my staff, the world. She turned slightly, letting the crowd see her face. Not triumphant, not cruel, just tired in a way that carried decades. I'm not here to embarrass you, she said to Weller. You did that yourself. Then she looked back to the board. And I'm not here to argue. I'm here to protect what I built. The suited man nodded once tight. Then we need to convene, he said. Right now. The elevator doors opened again behind them, as if the building itself was making way. The board members stepped aside for Marianne. For the first time since she'd entered, people moved for her not because she demanded it, but because reality had corrected itself. Weller stood frozen. The guard stepped back. Lana exhaled shakily, like she'd been holding her breath for years. Marianne walked toward the elevator, each step measured. As she passed Weller, she paused. Not close enough to threaten. Close enough to be heard. You saw my age, she said quietly. You saw my skin. You saw my clothes. And you decided who I was. She met his eyes. You didn't even think to ask my name. Weller's mouth moved without sound. Marianne stepped into the elevator. The doors began to close. And just before they did, she looked out at the crowd, at the phones, the faces, the people who had watched. Her voice carried one last line into the lobby like a promise. Now, she said, let's have our meeting. The doors shut. The lobby erupted. Not into applause, not yet, but into a sound like the world trying to process what it had just witnessed. 1,000 thumbs hit share buttons. 1,000 comments poured in. And somewhere in the building above them, a boardroom was about to become a courtroom. The boardroom had floor-to-ceiling windows and a table long enough to make people feel small on purpose. It was designed for power. Marianne walked in like she had always belonged there, because she had. The board members stood, not out of politeness, out of recognition. The suited man cleared his throat. Ms. Coles, on behalf of. Marianne raised a hand. Later, she sat at the head of the table, a chair that had been symbolically hers for years, even when others tried to pretend it wasn't. Bring him, she said. 10 minutes later, James Weller stood at the far end of the boardroom, flanked by HR and legal counsel. His blazer looked suddenly childish. His hands fidgeted at his sides. He tried to speak first. I want to apologize, he began. There was a misunderstanding. Marianne's lawyer arrived then, calm and composed, setting a briefcase on the table like punctuation. No, Marianne said. There was an assumption. Weller swallowed. I didn't know who she was. The steel-eyed board member leaned forward. Explain, she said, how you treat people you don't recognize. Weller's eyes flicked to legal counsel, to HR, to the suited man. No one rescued him, because the video was already everywhere, because the company's communications team had already called 3 times, panicked, because the resort's hashtag was trending for all the wrong reasons. Marianne's lawyer slid a tablet onto the table and tapped the screen. The lobby footage played. Weller's voice, this isn't a shelter. This isn't a community center. His smile, people pay a lot to feel safe. Every word sounded worse in the cold quiet of the boardroom. HR's face tightened. Legal counsel sighed like a man already calculating settlements. The suited man spoke carefully. Mr. Weller, he said, you violated company policy regarding guest treatment. You also created an immediate reputational crisis. Weller's voice cracked. I was trying to protect the resort. Marianne leaned forward slightly. You were protecting an image, she said. Not people. Weller's eyes were wet now. Fear, not remorse. Outside the room, phones kept buzzing. News outlets had picked it up. Local stations. National commentators. People stitching the clip with their own stories. Staff members downstairs huddled in break rooms, watching their workplace become a battleground of public opinion. The board voted, not theatrically, not with malice, with grim necessity. James Weller was terminated effective immediately. His access revoked, his keys collected. An internal investigation launched into guest discrimination complaints over the past 5 years. Because once you see one moment, you start wondering what moments never got filmed. The resort released a statement by afternoon, then another, as backlash kept rising. Sponsors questioned partnerships. A travel influencer posted a tearful video. I can't support a place that treats elders like that. Bookings dipped within hours. A luxury brand paused its event. A major corporate retreat canceled. Stock analysts began noting reputational instability, and the company's share price dipped enough to make investors nervous. And in the middle of all of it, Marianne sat in the quiet of her office, an office that had been renamed twice by people who assumed she wouldn't notice, and she stared at the ocean. Not satisfied, not gloating, just steady. Because consequences were never as simple as a villain losing his job. Consequences rippled. Staff feared for their paychecks. Guests wondered if they'd been complicit. The world argued online like it always did, some defending, some denying, some deflecting. And Marian knew something else too. One man could be fired, but the thinking that made him comfortable humiliating her, that took more than a termination letter. That took culture, policy, training, and courage. So she called another meeting, not with the board, with the staff. They gathered in the ballroom, the same one where weddings happened and champagne flowed and people promised forever under chandeliers. Today, it held a different kind of promise. Housekeepers stood beside chefs, concierge workers beside valets, maintenance beside marketing, front desk staff beside bartenders. Some looked angry, some looked scared, some looked ashamed, like they were replaying the lobby scene and wondering what they should have done. Marianne walked onto the stage without spotlight or introduction. She stood at the microphone and waited. Not for silence, for readiness. When the room finally settled, she spoke. "I want you to hear me clearly," she said. "I'm not standing here to punish." A small exhale moved through the crowd. "I'm standing here to protect," she continued. This resort was built on the idea that people deserve rest, that people deserve beauty, that people deserve to be treated like they matter. She looked around slowly, letting her eyes land on faces. "I built this place when folks told me I didn't belong near the ocean unless I was holding a mop," she said, voice steady. "I built it when banks laughed, when contractors doubted, when partners tried to rewrite the story, so my name became a footnote." She paused. "And I built it with people," she said. "People like you." Some eyes glistened. Marianne's voice softened, but it did not weaken. "What happened in that lobby wasn't just about me," she said. "It was about a habit our world has. A habit of deciding someone's value before we learn their name." She let that sit. A habit of assuming a person is a problem because they don't look like what we expect a customer, an owner, a leader to look like. Her gaze moved to the guards in the back. "And I want to say something else," she added. "The man who touched my arm," he hesitated. "I saw it. That matters, because it means your conscience is still alive." The guard's shoulders dropped, relief and shame mixing in his expression. Marianne continued. "Dignity isn't something you earn by wearing the right clothes," she said. "It's not something you buy with the right credit card. Dignity is what you owe people because they're human." A few heads nodded. "If you ever find yourself about to treat someone poorly," she said, "ask yourself this. Would I speak like this if I knew who they were?" She paused, and then asked the better question, she said, voice firm. "Why does it take status to make someone deserving of respect?" That landed hard. Some people lowered their eyes. Some swallowed. Some looked like they'd been waiting their whole lives to hear someone say it out loud. Marianne leaned into the microphone just slightly. "We're going to change how we do things here," she said. "Not because we got caught, because we got shown." She straightened. "And if you work here," she finished, "you are not just serving guests. You're guarding the soul of this place. So guard it well." The ballroom stayed silent for a moment after she stepped back. Not awkward silence, reverent silence. Then, somewhere in the crowd, someone began to clap. Slow, steady, then another. Then the entire room rose into applause. Not for revenge, but for relief, for clarity, for a standard that finally felt real. Marian didn't smile big. She just nodded once, like she was accepting not praise, but shared responsibility. By late summer, the resort felt different. Not in the marketing brochure way, in the way people looked each other in the eye, in the way staff meetings had real conversations, not scripted ones, in the way managers were trained, not just on revenue, but on respect. They implemented new policies with outside oversight, anonymous reporting channels, mandatory bias and de-escalation training. a review board that included staff representatives, not just executives. Marianne insisted on it. "We don't fix a leak by repainting the ceiling," she told the board. They also did something that shocked investors at first. They opened the resort's ballroom one night a month to the local community. Not as charity, as belonging. Scholarship dinners for hospitality students. Local Black-owned vendors invited to set up in the courtyard market. A mentorship program where senior staff taught young people how to build careers without losing themselves. Some people grumbled online. "She's ruining the exclusivity." But something else happened too. People came, not just for luxury, for meaning. A family posted a video of their grandmother walking through the lobby without anyone doubting her place there. The caption read, "She deserves softness too." The video went viral in a different way, gentler, healing. Bookings returned, then grew, because the story of the resort wasn't just a nice place to stay anymore. It was a place that had been tested in public and chose, painfully, to become better. As for James Weller, his name faded from the resort's website like he'd never existed. But the internet didn't forget quickly. He tried to rebrand, to issue statements about lessons learned. Companies didn't line up to hire the man whose face had become shorthand for a certain kind of arrogance. He moved away from the coast. Some said he blamed Marianne. Some said he blamed cancel culture. Marianne didn't speak his name again, not because she feared it, because she refused to let him become the center of a story he didn't deserve. She stayed busy. She attended staff graduations. She sat with the kitchen crew during lunch sometimes, listening more than talking. One evening, the young housekeeper from that morning months ago approached her near the garden. "Ms. Coles," she said, voice trembling with excitement. "I got accepted." Marianne's eyes warmed. "Where?" "Hospitality program," the girl said, beaming. "And they gave me a scholarship. The Maribel Scholarship." Marianne nodded slowly, like she was tasting the moment. "Good," she said. "Then you'll come back and run this place someday." The girl laughed, disbelieving again. Marianne leaned closer. "I'm not joking," she said. "I built this so you wouldn't have to fight the same fights alone." The girl's eyes filled, and Marianne, who had been filmed being humiliated in her own lobby, stood in the soft garden light and watched someone else step into a future that felt a little less hostile. The ocean breathed behind them, steady as ever. So here's the thing. In that lobby, dozens of people watched. Some recorded. Some stayed silent. Some wanted to help but didn't. Some believed the manager until the paperwork proved otherwise. And it only took a moment, just one moment, for everyone to learn how quickly we decide who belongs. If Marianne's folder hadn't had a gold seal, if the elevator hadn't opened when it did, if the cameras hadn't been rolling, would anyone have stopped it? And more importantly, when you see someone being pushed out of a space with that same cold certainty, will you wait for proof of their status, or will you offer them dignity simply because they're human?